What if Deku had the trigger vision quirk? Let's explore how this new power would shape his journey. In a hospital room, there was a woman with long green hair, a healthy and attractive figure and emerald eyes, sitting next to a little boy of 4 years old, her son, also with green hair, freckles on his cheeks and black eyes with a small, barely perceptible green spot, waiting for the doctor's call for a medical checkup on the minor. Doctor, exiting to the waiting room, next, please. Inko, yes, it's us, going to the room where the doctor was. Inko, well doctor, does my son have a quirk? She said, hoping it was a positive answer. Doctor, you see. To determine if a person has a quirk or not, several x-rays are taken of different parts of the body. The most common thing is that a person with a quirk does not have a certain joint in the little toe, he said, showing the x-ray to the little boy's mother. Inko, but, my son has it. Does that mean? Doctor, I mean your son has the joint in his finger so he can't develop a quirk. Izuku just listened to the doctor's words while his expression changed from happy to sad and disappointed. Inko, oh, I see. She said with a sad face. Doctor, however. Inko/Izuku, huh? Doctor, what I'm telling you is that if your son can't develop a quirk, at least a physical one. I told you that they take x-rays of different parts of the body, well look at these, he said, showing an x-ray of Izuku's head focusing on his eyes. Inko, what does that mean? Doctor, do you see that tiny spot in your left eye? Pointing to a specific part of the x-ray, it's a slight change in the color of the little one's iris. Inko, so? Doctor, your son will develop a quirk different from the common quirk, a mental capacity quirk as we call it. These for some reason take much longer to manifest completely, and that colored spot is proof of it. As he grows his eyes may take on a completely different color, and that will be when his quirk will be activated passively. Inko, if that means my son has a quirk, when will it manifest? Izuku just listened to the conversation with a smile, knowing that he would have a quirk, but also somewhat sad knowing that it would take longer. Doctor, I don't know, these quirk cases are very strange, but taking into account that it takes 4 years for a small spot, I think around 8 to 10 years, although it could be less, at which point you will have to make another visit to know exactly what your quirk is. Inko, I see. Thank you very much, doctor. Doctor, not at all, I hope I have been helpful. Inko, of course I do, she said as she left the room taking her son by the hand. Inko, Izu, was interrupted by her son. Izuku, did you hear mom? I'll have a quirk someday. I'll be a great hero and save people with a smile like All Might does. He said, extremely excited. Inko, with a big smile, yes, Izuku, you will be the best hero of all, as they left the hospital to head home. At the Midoriya house. A normal 2-story house, 2 bedrooms plus 1 for visitors, living room and bathroom. Inko, we're finally home, Izuku, she said as she opened the front door. Izuku, yes, mom, nodding happily. Inko, you can watch TV while I prepare the food, okay? Izuku, sure. I want to see All Might. Inko, decided then, with a smile on her face. The older green-haired girl set up a channel where they were showing recordings of different heroes in action, including All Might, the current #1 hero in the ranking. Izuku, All Might. All Might. He said excitedly as the #1 hero entered the scene from the sky with a laugh. All Might, ha ha ha. Everything is okay. You know why? Izuku/All Might, because I'm here ! Because I'm here. After an easy win for #1, Izuku continued watching TV for another possible appearance of his idol, but got a night scene where a robbery was being committed. Izuku, who is that hero? I was really expecting more than 2 people stealing a wallet. Said a tall person with long black hair levitating in the air, black eyes with a red glow. His clothes were black, but it couldn't be distinguished due to the low light at night. Villain 1, don't get involved if you don't want us to hurt you, idiot. Villain 2, not that you care what we do, get out. As you wish, he said while he launched himself at the villains, making an agile movement, catching the villains, tying them with bandages that he had around his neck. Izuku, woo, that hero is great, he defeated the villains so easily. Who could it be? I don't know him. Inko, from the kitchen, Izuku, the food is ready, turn off the TV and come eat, please. Izuku, yes, mom, I'm coming, as he turned off the TV and headed to the kitchen with his mother. The months were passing normally. Every so often, Izuku's eyes were turning more and more of a green color, His school routine would be normal if it hadn't been for his classmate and neighbor Katsuki who, knowing that Izuku hadn't developed his quirk yet, made fun of him and sometimes hit him. Izuku didn't tell anyone about his mistreatment, but he knew he couldn't be like this forever. He began to admire several heroes that he thought were great, but there were two that stood out by far in his interest: All Might and Erased Head, the number one hero and a knight hero with impressive abilities. At the age of 13, Izuku had both of his eyes completely green, so he went with his mother to the doctor again as she had requested years ago. "Doctor, Mrs. Inko, it's nice to see you after so long. Is this Izuku?" Inko: "Yes, it's nice to see him again, and yes, he is Izuku." "Doctor, nice to see you after being so little," he said, shaking Izuku's hand, who accepted it with a greeting. Izuku: "Likewise, I'm aware of the situation with my eyes and he told me to come back when my eyes completely changed color and here I am." "Doctor, of course, I just need to run some tests and I'll give you the news." After 30 minutes the doctor spoke in front of the green-haired men. "Doctor, Izuku." Izuku: "Why yes?" "Doctor, your quirk is." Flicking through several papers, forced activation. Izuku: "Huh? What's it about?" "Doctor, as the name suggests, you can activate someone's gift without them wanting it." Izuku, surprised: "And how do I do that?" "Doctor, the reason your eyes changed is because of that. You can activate your quirk by concentrating and looking at someone. You can try it with your mother's quirk." Izuku looked at his mother and she nodded, making way for Izuku to try out his quirk for the first time. Izuku: "Okay, here I go." "Mom, don't activate your quirk, please." Inko: "Whatever you say, Izuku," awaiting his son's action. Izuku knew that his mother's quirk allowed her to levitate things and move them in the air, so he stared at his mother while her eyes gave a small flash of green and a nearby pencil began to rise, leaving Izuku and his mother surprised. Izuku deactivated his quirk and the pencil fell again. "Doctor, pretty good for your first time activating your quirk. The more you use it, the more it will improve." Izuku was just nodding with a huge smile on his face. Arriving home, Izuku went to his room to do his hobby, writing notebooks where he had information about heroes that he thought were cool. Izuku: "What uses can I give to my quirk?" He thought, maybe being able to return someone's attack with the same quirk or have them activate it when they're aiming at themselves. Suddenly his phone rang. It was a notification from a page that uploads videos of heroes fighting against villains that had uploaded a video at that moment. Izuku, reading with excitement: Erased Head catches 3 villains who are trying to rob a bank. Thinking about it, Erased Head's quirk focuses on the eyes and mine does too. Izuku stayed up watching videos of heroes in the middle of battle until he fell asleep. One day later, at the Midoriya house. It's Monday at 7:45. An alarm clock is ringing and being turned off by a sleepy green-haired boy. Izuku: "I heard you, silly alarm clock, 7:45. 7:45? I'm going to be late for school." Izuku puts on his high school uniform, following that he hurries out of his room, down the stairs and into the kitchen where his mother was. Izuku: "Hello, Mom, good morning." Inko: "Good morning, Izuku, aren't you having breakfast?" Izuku: "Nope, this is fine." While grabbing a slice of toast with strawberry jelly on it, "I'm leaving, I'll be back later." Inko: "Okay, be careful, okay?" Izuku: "Sure, Mom," he said as he walked out the door and started running on his way to school. "Well, if I run it will take me 10 minutes and if I go by train it will take me 15 because of traffic, there's no time to waste." As he ran something stopped him suddenly. Bonk. Izuku: But what?" He was interrupted by the complaint of the girl he had hit who was rubbing his head. "Ow, ow, ow." While rubbing his head with both hands. "Hey, idiot. Watch where you're going, broccoli head," he said pointing at the boy. Izuku: "Scared, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hit you. I didn't look where I was going." Midoriya, Izuku Midoriya," he said waiting for the girl's name. "And you think I'll tell my name to an idiot who hit me?" he said while turning his back to the green-haired boy and continuing on his way. Izuku: "I'm sorry," he said to the girl who was already meters away from him. "It's true, school." He ran off in the direction of his school. As Izuku continued on his way to school, a thought interrupted his mind. Izuku: "Where have I seen that girl before?" Izuku was walking calmly down the hallway to get to his classroom, when he was stopped by a boy with pale blonde hair, red eyes and taller than him. "Where do you think you're going?" Izuku, upon hearing those words, knew who it was, to which he said. Izuku: "Kachan." I'm just going to the classroom, it's getting a little late, you should do the same, he said, trying to avoid the other boy. Katsuki, look, you damn nerd, grabbing the green-haired boy by the shirt, didn't you bring money for lunch today? Izuku, and no, I brought my own lunch, he exclaimed, scared. Katsuki, what the hell are you saying? If you don't give me what I want right now, I'm going to. He was interrupted by his teacher, who was passing by to go teach his class. Teacher, are you going to what? Katsuki just let go of Izuku and headed to his classroom with a disgusted face. Izuku, thank you, Professor, he said, relieved to be saved from a routine beating. Teacher, as you say, let's go to the classroom, taking the boy with him to his respective classroom. After classes, the green-haired boy headed home through the back entrance of the school, but as soon as he left he could see something jumping from the nearby buildings. He focused his vision and could see a person wearing a green sweatshirt, dark green shorts, red boots and a mask that covered from his nose down. Izuku, that's a hero? Something that caught Izuku's attention was that person seemed to be going in the opposite direction from where he was. It was as if he had been in that school a few minutes ago. After that day, he never saw him again. This was the green-haired boy's daily life, constant abuse from the person he considered his friend for not having a quirk, since the latter had not told him anything about it, since he would only receive mockery from Katsuki, who had an explosion quirk that was showy and powerful, while his had to depend on others. 1 year later. It was the last day of high school for our green-haired boy, since in a while the exams to attend hero academies would be applied. The green-haired boy wanted to go to UA, the most prestigious hero school in which his two favorite heroes had attended. All Might and Erased Head. Izuku, already in his uniform and with plenty of time to get to school, went down to the kitchen to eat something on the way to school. Izuku, good morning, Mom, while grabbing an apple and picking up the lunch his mother prepared for him. Inko, good morning, Izuku, ready for the last day? Izuku, with a determined look, totally. Inko, well, I wish you luck and be careful saying goodbye to her son. Izuku, of course, Mom, as he walked through the door. When he reached the sidewalk he decided to walk since he had plenty of time left since he got up early, when he heard someone murmuring. Stupid day, why do I have to attend the last day? Damn teachers. Izuku, approaching where he heard the murmurs, stopping talking and looking at the green-haired boy with some displeasure. Oh. It's you idiot broccoli. Izuku, you're the girl from that time. The one who hit me. While pointing at the girl. What? You were the idiot who hit me while I was turning the corner. You even said it was your fault. He said with an annoyed tone. Izuku, oh, it's true, he said, remembering the event. I'm sore. He said, looking at the girl's clothes. Are you going to my school? If by your school you mean the nearest high school here, then yes, he said without interest. Izuku, well, we could go together, you know, we're going to the same destination like normal people who barely know each other because of an accident, he said, extremely nervous while giving a strange laugh. I don't care, resuming his path. Just don't talk to me, look at me or hint at me. Izuku, why yeah, sure. So the green-haired boy and the strange, grumpy girl left for their last day of school without even looking at each other, much less saying a word. Izuku had told her his name, but she never did. What is that unusual girl's name? It was the last day of school for our green-haired boy. He was on his way to school while an expressionless girl walked next to him. She didn't care at all, but Izuku. Izuku, I'm walking next to a girl. If only she weren't so annoying, I must say that she's cute. What the hell am I thinking? Besides, I don't even know her name. He thought while looking at the sky. Izuku was so lost in his thoughts that he didn't realize they had already arrived at school. When he turned around to see the girl who was accompanying him, she was no longer there. She had moved forward when she saw the green-haired boy standing still as if he were dead. Izuku. I guess he got bored. Izuku walked into his classroom and sat at his desk, when the teacher walked in with a stack of papers in his hands, sat at his desk and spoke. Teacher, okay, students, here are the application forms to study at a high school for some profession. But who cares? Everyone here wants to be a hero, right? He said, throwing the forms in the air. Except for Bakugo and Izuku, everyone was shouting excitedly as they showed off their different quirks, until they were silenced by the sound of an explosion. Bakugo, don't put me with all these extras, Professor, he said, annoying the others. Teacher, you want to go to UA, right? Bakugo, I will be the only one from this school of useless people to enter UA, I will surpass All Might and my name will be on the list of the richest, LOL, he said in a mocking tone. Teacher, Oh, that's right. Midoriya will also apply to UA, right? Saying that, everyone remained silent for a few seconds and then burst out laughing, making fun of the boy, until they were silenced by an explosion again, this time hitting Izuku's desk, scaring him. Bakugo, listen to me, you fucking nerd. Grabbing the collar of his shirt, if you dare to get in my way, I'll kill you. Teacher, Bakugo. Sit down now. Bakugo just clicked his tongue as he walked back to his seat. After finishing classes, Izuku leaves to avoid the big lecture from his friend and went to a nearby store where there was All Might merchandise. He bought a pack of sound cards which all said buy more cards. LOL in the hero's voice. On his way back home he passed by an alley he always passed by. He was looking at his new cards when he heard a voice. Villain, oh, a body. Izuku freaked out and turned around to see who spoke, but when he tried to do so a muddy thing had him by the whole body, entering a little through his mouth, making his breathing faster and faster. Until he heard a scream which was familiar to him, Texas. Smash, it was the last thing he heard before passing out due to lack of oxygen. Hey kid. Wake up. Kid, he said while patting the green-haired boy's cheek. Izuku, waking up ah? All Might? Okay, you're awake, it's time for me to go, I hope you support me on TV, I said while bending my legs to jump. When he was in the air he felt an extra weight. When he looked he saw the young man he had saved. I need to ask you something, Tilda, said the green-haired boy as the hero landed on the roof of a building. I don't have much time, while barely perceptible steam came out of his back, be quick. Izuku, I wanted to ask you if someone with a quirk that always depends on another allied quirk can become a hero? Can someone weak be a hero? Looking up he saw a skeleton of skin where his idol was supposed to be. Izuku, ah. A fake? I am All Might, while blood came out of his mouth. The hero told him about a fight he had against a villain years ago and how he could only be a hero for 3 hours a day. And answering your question. If you always depend on someone you will be weak. Being alone, it is very dangerous. If you want to save people you better become a police officer, although they are criticized they also save lives. He said while he was going down the stairs of the building. Izuku was dejected and with tears in his eyes. His idol told him that with his quirk he couldn't be a hero. Leaving the building he headed to his house when he heard an explosion that caught his attention. Izuku, that's... No. It was my fault that he escaped. The green-haired boy said. Among the crowd was a very thin man saying to himself, I got distracted and let him escape, pathetic. Izuku, hearing the professionals say that there was a student hostage, looked towards the villain and for a second he managed to see the look of his friend Katsuki being trapped by the mud villain. Without thinking he jumped the security fence and ran towards the villain, ignoring the hero's warnings. Being close and seeing that the villain was going to attack him, he dodged him and threw his backpack at the villain, which had a soda can that exploded, hurting him. All Might was just watching the scene and the boy's action, feeling bad about what he told him. When the villain was going to attack and All Might was going to interfere, someone jumped from a building and headed towards the villain. Being close to him he activated his quirk, and immediately after the villain began to turn into a normal person. Quite ugly it must be said. After that he caught him tying him with the bandages on his neck and making a movement of his hand from the villain's neck to his nape he knocked him out, handing him over to the police and leaving the place as he came. Izuku was being scolded for jumping into danger as a child, while Katsuki was praised for enduring the villain's torture. After finishing, he headed back to his house when he saw someone he never expected to see in his life on a rooftop. Izuku, erased head? Is that you? He asked, surprised. The hero turned his gaze towards the green-haired man and went down from where he was, addressing him. Erased H, the same, what do you want? He said seriously. Izuku, I would like an autograph, he said, giving a notebook and a pen to the hero, which he signed with pleasure, and also ask you something. Erased H, are you going to cry or ask? Izuku, can someone with a quirk that depends on other quirks be a hero? He asked, waiting for a positive response from his other idol RK, who responded. Erased H, no, he said simply. Izuku had tears in his eyes. His two idols had told him that he would not be a hero, or at least that was what he understood until. Erased H, and to not depend on someone else, become strong by yourself. My quirk erases that of others, so I guess it's my quirk too. And you? He said seriously. Izuku, wiping away tears, is this it, looking at the black-haired boy and making his eyes have a little shine. Izuku activated Erased Head's quirk without meaning to. But in doing so Izuku's quirk stopped because he looked at it and erased his quirk. When he deactivated his quirk also deactivated since it was Izuku who was activating it. After seconds of analyzing it he said. Erased H. Wow. It's the opposite and the same as mine at the same time. Anyway, you have your autograph, so I'm leaving. I hope to see you in some academy being strong by yourself. You can be a hero. He said, jumping into a house and leaving. Izuku was crying. His idol was surprised at him. He told him that he could be a hero and motivated him, nothing more. Since then he began to idolize Erased Head, and although leaving aside All Might, he did not hate him, since he knew that deep down he was right. That same night, when he got home, he stopped to think seriously about entering a hero academy. He knew that in terms of physical qualities he was the worst, but he knew how to analyze the situation and act accordingly. So from tomorrow until 10 months from now, which would be the entrance exam at UA, he would train his body and his hand-to-hand combat skills. For this he had to have a plan with schedules of what he was going to do and at what time to do them. So he spent a few hours that same night writing his exercise plan until he fell asleep at his desk. The next morning, the green-haired boy woke up at 5 a.m., put on his sports clothes, took a bag of water, some first aid supplies and a long rope. If he had to adapt to a fighting style, what better than that of his greatest hero? He took his cell phone, in which he had videos and videos of the hero Erased Head fighting against villains. Although it was going to take him a lot of time and effort, he would learn his hero's fighting techniques. When he left, he decided to go to a beach that was a few minutes from his house. That beach was a garbage dump. The garbage from the sea accumulated on the coast and people threw things that were not useful to them in that place. When he arrived, the first thing he did from his training plan was get physically strong. He would clean the beach on his own while exercising his body. At home he would use hand weights while doing daily activities such as watching television or reading. He would continue like this until he finished, but only 3 days after he had started. When he arrived at the beach, he noticed that there were 2 people there talking. He approached without the intention of bothering, just that he was doing something there and maybe the people would get in the way. Is all this really true? Izuku, hello. Turning, huh? Is something wrong? Izuku, yeah. Well, it's just that I'm All Might? Huh? Oh, you're that guy. Sorry for what I said, but I hope you understand that it's the best for you. Izuku just looked down with a sad face. Do they know each other? Well. What happens is that he was interrupted. Izuku, no. I don't know him. He just came to train here on the beach. He said, looking up and with a neutral face. Train? How curious, I am here to do the same thing. Izuku, really? What are you going to do? Izuku, I will clean the beach/clean the beach. Izuku, huh? You'll do the same as me. Should we help each other? After all, cleaning the beach will be a community action. It would be fine by me, it would be easier that way. What do you say, sensei? I think that. Sighing, I guess it wouldn't be bad. Well said. I am Tagata, Mirio Tagata, extending his hand to Izuku, who shook his hand back. Izuku, Midoriya Izuku, nice to meet you, he said with a smile. From that day on, Mirio and Izuku would clean the beach together. For Mirio it wasn't much since his body was toned, while Izuku looked like spaghetti, but he slowly gained muscle. They cleaned day after day, until after 5 months they managed to clear the trash from the beach, so now they would have to practice their skills. For Mirio it wasn't much, but the little he could learn he took advantage of. With Izuku, who knew nothing about hand-to-hand combat, was trained by Mirio, since when he found out he was going to UA he begged him 1,001 times to train him, and so he would. One morning Izuku arrived an hour earlier than usual to train alone. He took out the rope he had in his backpack and stretched it, making movements with his hand that affected the rope as well. Many of those hits were towards the green-haired boy, who got tangled up again and again with the rope, trying to imitate Erased Head's movements. He spent the whole day training like this since Mirio and All Might had not gone to the beach that day. During his training someone was watching him. He never noticed, but there was someone watching him. Broccoli, idiot. The next morning he left for the beach again an hour early. When he arrived he could see a person with black hair and clothing of the same color. When he saw that man he could not help but get excited and go talk to him. Izuku, Erased Head? Erased H, boy, you've arrived. Izuku, I arrived? What do you mean? You were watching me train? Erased, not me, a girl about your age was here, and while I was patrolling I saw you hitting yourself with a rope, so I decided to come see how you hit yourself. Izuku, a girl? That wasn't really the purpose, I was just training some moves. Erased H, what moves? Izuku, Sad some of his techniques with his bandages, but I don't even know what they're made of or where I could get them, so I took a rope, which is the closest thing. Erased H, I figured, take this and do what I tell you, he said, throwing a bag at her. Izuku opened the bag to see some bandages just like the heroes. He got excited and did as he was told. Erased H. First learn how to untie them when you have them around your neck, like this, he said, showing how he stretched the bandages from his neck. Izuku, W which way? When he pulled the bandages they rubbed against his neck, causing pain. Ouch. Erased H. You're an idiot. They spent several hours training until Erased Head got sleepy and went to sleep, leaving the green-haired boy still training how to untie the bandages quickly and without hurting himself. The next day he went to see the boy's progress and was surprised to see him untie and tie the bandages around his neck over and over again, so he decided to teach him another move. Erased H. Brat. Now you will do this, he said, grabbing a can with the bandages and pulling it towards him, catching it with his hand. Izuku, I'll try. At the moment of doing so, he was able to grab the can and pull it, but not towards his hand, but towards his face. Erased H. Do it again. Lower your hand a little further when pulling on the bandages. Izuku tried again, but the result was the same. Erased H. Pull the bandages evenly, not in one pull. Izuku tried again, and this time he was able to do it perfectly, which surprised him a lot. Erased H. Well done. Now let's do this, he said, showing another movement. Izuku, yes. Erased Head. Erased H. Call me Aizawa and now I'm your teacher. Izuku, yes Aizawa-sensei. Aizawa trained Izuku daily until after months of training he had perfected several capture and defense techniques. Although he still had dozens to learn them all, that would be enough to take the UA exam. The long-awaited day arrived and Izuku was heading to UA until he met the same girl he had met on occasion. Hey, Broccoli, you're applying to UA, huh? Izuku, huh? Why yeah, apparently you too, shall we go together? May, whatever, walking next to the green-haired boy. A boy of average height, with disheveled green hair, was on his way to the very prestigious UA Institute, accompanied by a certain girl with violet hair with black tones who was wearing a sports school tracksuit just like the freckled boy next to her. Several minutes of their walk passed in silence, until the purple-haired girl began the conversation with, "Can I ask something?" he said with a monotonous expression. "Ah, of course," he said, surprised that the girl next to him was starting a conversation. "Your quirk. What is it?" he asked in a serious tone. "It may sound silly, but I activate my quirks," the green-haired boy said sadly. "Activate quirks? How is that?" the violet-haired girl asked curiously. "Like that," he said, activating his quirk, making his eyes have a slight emerald flash. "You say you can activate a person's quirk without them wanting it, right?" the girl emphasized. "That's exactly how it works. Since I'm not strong against someone with a physical quirk, I train to be able to fight with these," he said, pointing to the long bandages he wore around his neck. "I see." The girl fell silent. "And yours?" the boy asked without getting any answer, so he continued on his way in silence. And at the UA, the green-haired boy separated from his companion as he stood looking around the facilities. After deciding to enter, he was stopped by a blonde boy with anger issues who only told him, "So if you came," and then entered the institute. The green-haired boy was heading to the school entrance, but unfortunately for him, he tripped on his own foot when he took a step, which caused him to fall to the floor, or at least that should have been the case if he hadn't been levitating in the air. He turned to his right and saw a girl approximately his same height, with a build that was not as thin, but who did not show any defects on her, her brown hair reaching her shoulders with long strands peeking out from her cheeks. "Huh?" the green-haired boy wondered. "Sorry for using my quirk on you without your permission, but I assumed it would be bad luck if you tripped," the brunette said with a smile on her face, as she put her hands together, causing Izuku to land lightly. She couldn't say anything out of nerves. The girl was certainly cute having a conversation with her. "I'm Uraka Ochako, let's do our best," she said to go to her destination. Which made Izuku do the same after recapitulating what happened. The exam was divided into two parts, the written/theoretical exam and the practical exam. The written exam was nothing out of the ordinary, however, the practical exam was about destroying robots with a point equivalent of 1 to 3 in order to accumulate the most points. There was a different type of robot, which was warned, and it was not mandatory to fight it since it had a point value of 0 and would be more of an obstacle than a goal. The green-haired boy was already in his assigned area to take the exam. He saw the brunette girl he talked to at the entrance and wanted to thank her for keeping him from falling. However, a tall and somewhat toned boy stopped him, telling him not to bother her because she was probably concentrating. Suddenly the doors opened and the green-haired boy instinctively ran to the field of action, while everyone else just stood there watching, until a loud hero shouted at them. "What's wrong? In a real fight there's no countdown, start." Once inside, Izuku began to look for a way to defeat the robots until he came up with the solution of crashing them against the floor or against nearby buildings by pulling them with his bandages. Although it was easy to defeat the various types of robots that attacked him, he did not find many or some were destroyed by other candidates. Only 17? This is very little, I must go to the center, and so it was. He went to the center and found some more robots, destroying them when he saw them. But suddenly a rumble shook the ground and he directed his gaze to what projected a gigantic shadow. It was the dreaded 0-point robot. Seeing him, everyone who was nearby ran away in fear, but Izuku was paralyzed by having a giant beast of metal and cables near him. He was brought out of his trance by a cry for help coming from near the robot. It was the brown-haired girl who helped me at the entrance. Without hesitation, he saw the blue-haired boy with glasses who had stopped him and lunged at him. He had already seen his quirk that made him increase his speed thanks to the motors in his calves. Being on top of him, he turned the boy's body in the direction of the robot and activated his quirk, causing the boy's motors to turn on and heading to where the girl was. Being close, he jumped off the boy who didn't know how his quirk was activated without him doing anything. Izuku activated several quirks of the few people who were running in the opposite direction until he saw a boy with a wide build whose quirk made him bigger. He jumped towards him and made a great leap, pushing himself off the boy. He threw his bandages to the rubble that was crushing the girl's foot and pulled it, thus freeing the girl, although she couldn't walk from the wound. So he did his technique, which was taught by his favorite hero and sensei, Erased Head. He managed to entangle the girl in his bandages and began to put his training into practice. Don't just yank, keep the force constant, he said to himself, firmly pulling the girl closer to him at high speed. Grab the can, grab it with both hands, he said, grabbing the girl perfectly princess style and landing on a building, leaving her lying down. The girl only looked at him, blushing. The green-haired boy quickly descended from the building using his bandages, sliding between the building's poles and pipes, thus avoiding a serious fall. When he was back on the ground, he went straight to the robot, dodging some rather slow attacks that the robot was making. He tangled his bandages in poles from sidewalk to sidewalk, creating a trap for the robot, which fell into it and tripped. The impact was such that the robot was immobilized and deactivated. The buzzer sounded, indicating the end of the exam. The green-haired boy defeated the big robot in exchange for his precious bandages that had been broken when the robot fell. The freckled boy made a great effort, so he fell unconscious to the ground. In the nearby crowd there were comments like, "That boy is incredible, he was very skilled, he destroyed the 0-point robot for fun." While with the boy with blue hair and glasses the thoughts were, "None of you understand, he did that to save that girl. Did he know of a second purpose in the exam?" And on the other hand, a brown-haired girl on top of a building wondered, "And now how do I get down from here?" After a few minutes, an old woman arrived. She was the UA nurse. She reached the top of the building where the brunette was. She gave her a kiss on her leg and she was healed. While with a certain green-haired man she only limited herself to taking him to the infirmary, since surprisingly he did not suffer a single wound, it was just exhaustion. The day ended with a boy with disheveled green hair on his way home after leaving the UA infirmary. In his head there were only thoughts like, "I only got 34 points, I don't think they're enough. If only I had gotten more points." Until he arrived home, being greeted by his mother with whom he had dinner and then took a shower and went to his room to sleep. In a few days the academy's response would arrive. It was already 7:40 p.m. and a green-haired boy was lying in the dining room next to an older green-haired girl with emerald eyes. It was Inko, his mother. Both green-haired boys were eating fish cruet and rice. What a great dish! It would be a common meal on a common night, if it weren't for the fact that the boy who was sitting in the dining room had his gaze fixed on a piece of fish. He was immersed in thoughts like, "Maybe the average is 30 or 40 points on the practical exam, and if I passed? Who am I kidding? I surely failed." It was not surprising that he had those words running through his head. He only managed to get 34 points on the practical exam and he knew it since he was counting them. However, he can't help but feel good about having saved someone. Without a doubt that would be clear proof that he had the feeling of being a hero. But it was not the only thing that was needed. "Izuku? Izuku," said the older green-haired girl. "Huh? What's wrong, Mom?" the freckled boy asked, disoriented. "Why are you staring at the fish?" she asked, worried about her son's attitude. "Does it taste bad?" with a slightly discouraged tone. "And no, not at all, it's delicious," he said, putting all the food in his mouth and finishing the plate. "I'm done. Thanks for the food, Mom," he said and then went to his room. "Ah. Yes, son, it's nothing." The boy with messy hair was lying on his bed. He was thinking about how Erased Head would scold him for breaking the bandages he had given him, but more importantly, how he failed him by not being able to enter UA. Izuku felt defeated at being able to enter the academy, but a part of him knew there was still hope. The boy would have rekindled that small part of hope if it hadn't been because he was interrupted by Inko, his mother, who had entered through the door of his room nervously and with an envelope in hand. Izuku, Yue's letter arrived, she said, handing it to the boy in front of her to leave the room. Izuku opened the envelope with low hopes, and out came a small circular device that projected a hologram of his greatest hero, Erased Head. "Hey brat," the disheveled hero said without enthusiasm, "your score on the practical exam was only 34 points. To tell the truth, you disappoint me even though I knew you would pass," he said with a serious and dull tone which made the boy look down and feel bad. He had disappointed his sensei. "Do you remember the brunette girl you saved? She went to ask for points from her as a thank you." "Poor fool," he said with notable mockery. The green-haired boy couldn't feel worse. Would he disappoint the person he saved too? However, there's still more. The last words made Izuku react and fix his gaze on the hologram. There was a second purpose in the exam, and it was the rescue points. For saving the brat they gave you 43 rescue points, added to the points from the robots you have 77 points, so you were accepted. Congratulations and blah blah blah. See you later. The black-haired man finished and the hologram turned off. The green-haired boy was shocked by such news. From now on he would study at UA to become a hero. The green-haired boy was on his way to his new school accompanied by his strange purple-haired companion. She had also been accepted into UA with a score of 52 points. His mother had wished him good luck before leaving. Without a doubt the day was going well for the green-haired boy. Until he reached his assigned classroom and opened the door and... "You can't put your feet on the desks. You're tarnishing the name of the heroes who used them before," said a blue-haired boy with glasses fighting with a blonde friend of Izuku. "Who the fuck cares?" With a mocking tone, he looked at the green-haired boy and just clicked his tongue in annoyance. "Oh, it's you. I apologize for my behavior during the exam. You proved to be good at discovering the secret purpose of the entrance exam," the boy with glasses said respectfully. "I'm Tenya Ida, nice to meet you." Izuku Midoriya, same to you," said the green-haired man, shaking the hand of the boy in front of him. "Yo." Zuku remembered that he had a companion and looked back, but the violet-haired girl was no longer there. She had taken a seat since she entered the classroom. The conversation of the green-haired four eyes was interrupted by a certain brunette known to Izuku. "Oh, if you got in, I'm so glad. That trap for the robots was incredible. You went wash. And then splam. And the robot boom," the girl said while making movements with her hands trying to simulate the situation. Someone was heard standing in the doorway saying, "If you want to play at making friends, go somewhere else. This is the hero course." The boys turned around and saw a yellow sleeping bag with someone inside it. He got out of his sleeping bag and introduced himself. "I'm Shota Aizawa and I'll be your homeroom teacher for the hero course," the black-haired boy said without any enthusiasm. Everyone was baffled. A slacker was their teacher? Everyone had been told that teachers at UA were heroes. "It's sudden, but put these on and go to the assigned area quickly," he said while showing in his hand a blue sports uniform with white lines that simulated the letters UA. Everyone put aside their discontent with the unknown teacher and went to the locker room to put on the sports uniform that had been given to each of them according to their measurements and Izuku. Well, Izuku wasn't doing that. He was on the floor unconscious from the surprise that his favorite hero was going to be his UA teacher. Aizawa woke him up and told him to go change or he would be late for exercise. But not before approaching his ear and saying, "You're just another student here, brat, I'll treat you like the others," and even worse with an evil tone, which made Izuku shiver and go quickly to change, but was stopped again by his sensei. "Brat, take this. They broke during the exam, didn't they?" she said, stretching out her hand and giving him a box. "Huh? Did I break a box?" the freckled boy asked innocently. "I'm talking about what's inside, idiot," the black-haired man said angrily. Izuku opened the box and a huge smile appeared on his face. They were new bandages. His had been destroyed when defeating the gigantic robot and that would be of great help to him. "Take it as a reward for coming in," said his sensei. "You start from here," with a very slight smile. "I won't let you down, Aizawa-sensei," the boy said cheerfully before going to change and go to the assigned area. Already in the UA courtyard were all the students in their sports uniforms and the teacher. The first exercise they will do will be several physical activities. "Bakugo, you were first in the practical exam. Come forward," said the disheveled hero. "What was your record for throwing a ball?" he asked the blonde. 67 meters, he replied monotonously. "Good, now throw it using your quirk," his master ordered him. Bakugo agrees with too much confidence, takes the ball, positions himself in the throwing area, does little stretches and finally throws it with an explosion, but not before shouting shine. 705 meters, Aizawa said, showing a device marking the distance the ball traveled. So we can use our quirks, said a pink-skinned girl with hair of the same color and deep yellow eyes with a black outline. It will be a lot of fun, she continued. Fun, huh? The hero in charge replied. Well, let's make it fun. Whoever comes in last place at the end of the exercises will be judged for not having potential and will be expelled from UA. Now that's fun, with a macabre smile reflected on his face. The boys were paralyzed by such a statement. The last place would be expelled. Izuku's journey to be a hero could not end here. He had to give his 100%, and if that was not enough he would have to give his 1000%. He would do whatever it took to be a hero, and this would be the beginning. The tests were nothing out of this world, but this time they would be using their quirks, and whoever had a favorable one would undoubtedly take the advantage. The green-haired boy was agile, but he wasn't in the best physical condition, which worried him, especially since it would be the last test, the ball throw. He was in last place, followed by a weird guy with grapes on his head. The last result would be the definitive one. Izuku entered the assigned area and took the ball. When he was going to throw it, he felt that someone or something caught him. They were the bandages of his sensei, who told him, "Is that all you can give? Just with your hands, huh? I guess I was wrong to trust you," Aizawa said with a disappointed tone. Aye, he said nervously, "I will show you that I am worthy of your trust," the green-haired boy exclaimed decisively. Aizawa didn't show it, but he appreciated the green-haired boy, a small one, but he did. The cruel words he said to him were to motivate him, and it seems that they worked. Izuku felt a great pressure on him. He knew he shouldn't do anything to embarrass himself in front of his sensei. He went to the launch area, positioned himself in the direction to throw, and took his bandages off his neck. He had an idea, which was to use one of the techniques he had learned from his training with the hero. It consisted of throwing an object with the bandages, literally the opposite of the technique he used to save the brunette girl. The freckled man, in a quick and precise movement, rolled the ball around the tip of the bandages and whipped them around, applying pressure and converting it into momentum. He directed the momentum towards the ball and threw the ball with a jerk, which shot out with considerable power. 223 meters, a raised head said, showing the device that measured the distance of the ball. "After all, you are not a failure, Midoriya." Izuku was happy and surprised. He managed to get a good result, and even his teacher called him by his last name, being the first time he didn't call him brat. Of course, for the green-haired boy, something so perfect would be strange. "Grrrrrrr, that's fucking cheating," said a blonde boy with anger issues. "You can't use support artifacts," he exclaimed as he ran closer and was propelled by his explosions towards the green-haired boy. "You better calm down, you damn ass." "Bakugo, stay calm," said the black-haired man. "I never really said that it was forbidden to use support devices," he said while catching Katsuki with his bandages, to which the blonde calmed down with hatred. "Okay, here are the results of the physical test, showing a hologram with a leaderboard." To Izuku's surprise, it wasn't the last place. That position was occupied by a dwarf with grapes in his hair who, upon seeing his name last, felt a chill run down his spine and saw his life pass before his eyes. "By the way, the thing about you being expelled was a lie, so go away," Brat said the disheveled man boredly. Everyone was surprised by such a statement, except for a girl with black hair and a slender body who declared, it was obviously a lie. After leaving the courtyard where the tests were carried out, they continued with completely normal classes until the exit, where the green-haired boy was about to leave, until he was interrupted by a certain blue-haired boy. "Oh, Midoriya, are you going to the station? Can I come with you?" asked Ida, Izuku's classmate and new friend. "Of course, it would be fun," said the freckled boy happily. "Oh, it's you," said a brown-haired girl joining the conversation. "You are the Infinity Girl," said the blue-haired man. "You are Ida-kun, and you are Deku-kun, right?" the brunette asked. "Midoriya-sama," the freckled man corrected. "Izu-kun," the big-cheeked girl insisted. "Midoriya-san," the green-haired man insisted. "Izuku-kun," the girl repeated. "Midoriya-kun," the boy said, somewhat fed up. "Midori-kun," the brunette continued. "Done," shaking the girl's hand. Izuku's first day at UA was over. It wasn't all bad. His coach became his teacher and he got 2 new friends. All that was left was to go home, have dinner, shower, go to bed and sleep to wait for the next day for his hero training. 1 day later. The green-haired boy had just woken up. It was 7:20 a.m. and he had to be at the academy at 8 a.m., so he wasn't short of time. He got out of bed and went to shower. When he finished, his mother called him to have breakfast, which he listened to and went down to the dining room. Halfway through breakfast, the older green-haired boy started a somewhat uncomfortable conversation. "Hey, Izuku," the freckled boy's mother said calmly. "Ah, tell me, Mom," he said with some food in his mouth. Yesterday when you arrived home a girl arrived a little while after you, the green-haired girl said with suspense. Really? Who? He asked innocently. Now that you mention it, she didn't say her name, but she was shorter than you and had short, violet hair, she said while imitating the girl's figure with her hands. Oh, I remember now, did he say something to you? The green-haired boy asked without stopping eating. Well, he just said that he had something to talk to me about this afternoon and said that since he lived near here he suggested that we go together on the way to school. What do you think? Mrs. Midoriya finished. She said that? I guess it's okay, although it seems strange to me that she would do something like that. I don't get along that well with her. We don't really talk, but I guess since we're on the way it wouldn't bother me at all, the green-haired boy finished. The small family had just finished breakfast when they were interrupted by the sound of a doorbell. Theirs. Inko hurried to open it while Izuku took his things for the academy and left, but the presence of a certain violet-haired girl stopped him. Huh? Is that you? The green-haired boy asked, disoriented. Good morning, Midoriya-kun. Good morning, Mrs. Midoriya. I came to go to the academy with Izuku, he said gently while bowing. Izuku was bewildered. The fact that the girl with the mysterious name was in his house was already strange, and even more so the fact that she acts that way, being somewhat indifferent to everyone. Oh, of course, Izuku was already on his way out, Inko said with a smile. Yes, gee, good morning, the green-haired boy said, embarrassed. Good morning, said the purple-haired girl without further ado. Upon leaving the Midoriya home, the green-haired boy tried to start a conversation, however he chose the worst possible start. Why did you? He couldn't finish because the girl next to him interrupted. Don't get excited, you silly broccoli, it only made a good impression and you better not bring it up in the open, the girl threatened. Izuku remained silent, and that was how it was throughout the entire journey to UA. When the violet-haired girl was close she quickened her pace with the excuse of, I don't want to be seen with you so go slower. She entered and then the green-haired boy entered as well. Classes at UA were not all that different from normal classes. The first 2 hours had English, the next 2 had history and so on until the last hour, which was hero training. When class started, the hero and now teacher All Might entered through the door apparently like a normal person and with his hero suit. Once inside he proceeded to start his class. Today we will do a combat exercise, he said with his characteristic animated tone. Those words made Izuku have a chill all over his body. It would be the first time he would fight against someone, but even worse than that was the fact that Bakugo, his friend, looked too excited to have a small chance to fight against him, knowing that he would beat him up. For this exercise we will use this, said the hero while pressing a red button and pointing at the briefcases that were sticking out of the wall. Your hero suits. Now get dressed and go to the simulation field. Already in the same field where the entrance exam was held, everyone was in line and dressed in their respective hero costumes except for Izuku, who was just arriving. Izuku came through the tunnel wearing his hero costume. His outfit consisted of a dark green long-sleeved shirt very similar to black, with white lines simulating a large letter I for Izuku, baggy black pants, but tight at the ankles, red sneakers like the ones he usually wears, however these had certain secret equipment for emergencies. He had black fingerless gloves with small bumps on the knuckles and a green handkerchief somewhat lighter than the one on his shirt, this one he used as a mask. A brunette girl saw the green-haired boy arrive and happily approached him to see his hero costume in detail. Wow! I see some street art, Midori-kun, she said while letting out small innocent laughs. Does it really look street-worthy? I was thinking more of urban camouflage, he said, also laughing a little. It's good to have a clear idea before they do it. I didn't specify what I wanted and mine ended up being a tight suit, Mamochi said sadly. Fuck, I wish I could respect her, he thought. Well, I think it suits you very well, he said with a noticeable blush where his freckles were. That happy and calm conversation was interrupted by the sensei in charge, All Might, who called everyone's attention and began to explain what the combat exercise would consist of. Okay, guys, the exercise is called Heroes vs. Villains and it consists of 2 teams made up of 2 people each fighting. One team will be the villains, who have the mission of defending the nuclear bomb that was placed on one of the floors of the building, and the other team will be the heroes, whose mission is to sneak in and recover the bomb or catch the villains with this capture tape, explained the hero in command. Remember that most minor crimes occur in closed spaces and everyone should know what to do in these situations, and you will learn all of this in this same exercise. In a real battle, act according to a plan and you will be judged according to your performance. Now the teams will be chosen by drawing lots. Everyone take one, he finished explaining while approaching the students with a box containing the drawing papers. Fortunately/unfortunately for our protagonist, he had to pair up with the brunette with the big cheeks, but he had his rivals Katsuki Bakugo and Tenya Ida, His childhood friend and his recent new friend with glasses, Izuku and Uraka were the heroes while Katsuki and Ida would be the villains who would protect the bomb. The time had already passed for the villains to enter and prepare their strategy as well as for the heroes to prepare a plan and memorize the building's construction plans. Izuku entered it with thoughts about a safe way to get to the bomb. Being Katsuki, he would go directly for it, but inside himself he was somewhat afraid. With those feelings he placed his handkerchief covering his face and entered with his partner to his fight. "Kachan will surely come straight to us," said the green-haired boy. "I think the best way." He was interrupted by the sound of an explosion aimed at the place where the two heroes were. Izuku instinctively jumped towards Uraka and pushed her to prevent her from falling into the explosion. "Come on, Deku. Don't dodge the explosions," the explosive blonde boasted. "Uraka, go get the bomb," he ordered his partner, who nodded and continued to follow the order when she saw the determination the green-haired boy had on his face. Katsuki launched another explosion that Izuku predicted and used one leg as a pivot and propelled himself to the right, trying to capture Bakugo with the capture tape, to which Katsuki saw it, and with another explosion he propelled himself in reverse to avoid being captured. Izuku was nervous, Katsuki was blinded by anger, and thus began the battle of heroes versus villains. Katsuki started with a right hook which Izuku dodged and grabbed his arm, put it over his shoulder and pulled it, causing Bakugo to spin around and end up lying on the ground face up. "Kachan, you usually start with a right hook," the freckled boy said. "How long do you think I've been watching you?" Izuku shouted. "Damn stalking nerd," he said with his characteristic annoyed tone. Izuku took advantage of the time when Bakugo was on the floor to escape by running through the hallways against the bomb, while Bakugo was chasing Izuku to give him the beating of his life. In the observation room where the other students and the hero in charge were, comments such as "that green-haired boy is good" and "the blonde one came first in the entrance exam, right?" could be heard. After a while, Uraka had reached the floor where Ida and the bomb were to be recovered. She gave the message through the communicator to her partner, Izuku, who had been found by a grumpy Katsuki. "Deku. They're loaded," he said with an overflowing psychopathic smile while he slapped the gloves of his suit. "If those idiots did what I asked them, this should save my sweat. And you know what that means," he said while pointing his glove at Izuku. "Bakugo, you can't use lethal moves, you could kill him," All Might said through the observation room microphone. "If you don't hit him, he won't die, right?" Katsuki answered while pointing to the side of where Izuku was. Bakugo removed the safety pin on his left glove and a gigantic explosion shot out in Izuku's direction, who, upon seeing that he aimed to his right, jumped to the left to minimize the damage. Izuku came out with a few bruises and his shirt and body parts with ash marks. The building was left with a gigantic hole, to which All Might warned Katsuki that if he used his glove again he would be disqualified. Uraka, who was in the room where Ida kept the bomb, entered through the door while Ida looked away. The plan was to approach slowly and stealthily to touch the bomb and win, but luck played a trick on her and she stepped on a piece of metal that was on the floor. That floor was, except for that piece of metal and the bomb, totally empty. Ida heard the noise and quickly knew it was Uraka, so before her arrival he planned a plan and cleaned the room by moving things somewhere else so Uraka wouldn't use her quirk. Uraka tried to get closer to the bomb, but Ida's quirk was faster and he could move the bomb out of place. Meanwhile, Izuku had a battle against Katsuki, who used his explosions consecutively and thus hitting the green-haired boy until Izuku decided to run away, or at least that's what Bakugo thought since he had a plan in mind. He told his teammate, Uraka, that when he gave the signal she would have to hold on to a pillar. She had told him the location of the bomb and it was precisely on the upper floor where he and Bakugo were. Bakugo, filled with rage, cornered Izuku and beat him until he was practically unable to move, and that was when, blinded by anger, he pointed his glove again to fire that gigantic explosion from before. All Might quickly saw that he was trying to use that move again, so he told him through the microphone that if he used it he would be disqualified. "Who the fuck cares anymore? I'll finish that nerd," Bakugo shouted as he was about to remove the safety pin from his glove. All Might was about to give the order to stop the fight until he was interrupted by Izuku, who said, "Uraka, now," she said to her partner's communicator, who followed the order and grabbed onto a pillar. Bakugo, while aiming his glove, let the palm of his hand face down. Izuku, seeing this, calculated the exact moment in which Bakugo fired his glove so that he used his quirk to activate an explosion in Bakugo's palm, which due to the shock wave of the explosion caused his right arm to rise, pointing his glove upwards. He tried to stop his hand from the safety catch, however it was too late. The gigantic explosion shot upwards, destroying several floors. Uraka and Ida felt the explosion, but Uraka was the one who acted. The pillar she was holding onto had been dislodged, so she used her quirk. Improvised special move, home run comet. she shouted before using the pillar as a baseball bat and with one blow sending dozens of stones falling from the rubble towards Ida. Uraka stunned her enemy with her last attack, and she activated her quirk on herself, then jumped to where the bomb was and retrieved it, thus winning the match with only 3 seconds left in the time limit. Bakugo was in shock. Izuku had him tied with his bandages with only his right arm coming out of them and to the side of him gasping for air and subsequently fainted. Izuku had taken advantage of the explosion to approach and tie Bakugo from behind with the help of one of his sensei's techniques. The battles were over and Izuku found himself with an upset Bakugo making a declaration of war against Izuku. After that he went home, took a shower, changed and went down to the living room to get a big surprise. The violet-haired girl who was bothering the green-haired boy was dressed in a long pink dress and carrying a bag, something totally impossible for her, but more importantly, there was her and 2 people who seemed to be her parents in the living room with Inko. Yes, mother. Hi, I'm Jiro, your girlfriend, the girl said with a blush on her cheeks and a cheerful smile that made Izuku shocked. Girlfriend? Was the question that followed the words that started it all. Girlfriend? Were the words that came out of the green-haired boy's mouth, barely audible to him. He was in shock. The girl who had just gone with him today on the way to school was at his house. Oh, hello, Izuku said the green-haired boy's mother. You really hide secrets well, she said in a peculiar tone. Secrets? Said the green-haired boy. Well, you never told me that the girl you're on your way to school with was your girlfriend, although thinking about it, it makes sense that she came to look for you, Inko said with a few small laughs. Me? Her? The green-haired boy wondered. Is there something I don't know? The purple-haired girl only had a fake, but convincing smile, while inside she was dying of nerves. Why yes, well what happens is that I wanted to talk to you about that, the purple-haired girl said affectionately. With me? The green-haired boy asked while coming up with a plan to escape from that situation. Oh yeah, but I think I could wait a few minutes, Izuku said starting with his plan. Why would I wait? Jiro's mother, Mika, asked. Well, it's just that. I forgot that I had to go get some notes that were given to the class president, and since I don't have his phone number, I'll go to his house. Yes, that's it, the green-haired boy finished. The bitter purple-haired girl understood what he was up to and thought that outside would be a good place to explain the situation to him, so she decided to go with him. Oh, that's right, I was forgetting, Mom, Dad, do you mind if I go? I won't be long, she said to her mothers, who responded yes calmly. So Izuku left his home followed by Jiro, the violet-haired girl. They were walking in an aimless direction and in silence until Izuku decided to start the conversation. Wait a minute, with that dress she looks a lot like that girl, right? No, that girl was very friendly, thought Izuku. See, can I ask? He asked, expecting a subtle answer. Look, stupid broccoli, I would never say this if necessary, but I need your help, the girl began to speak. Why, you see, my family has been a musical family for a long time, and well, my parents were given the opportunity to do a tour as a duet and they decided to take me since I couldn't stay alone. The girl's eyes began to crystallize and her voice began to break. I've always had the dream of being a great heroine and I'm just starting the path to achieve it. If I go with them, I would have to leave UA and possibly forget about being a professional. Those last words went straight to the green-haired man's heart, who knew better than anyone what it was like to have his hopes of being a hero taken away from him. I see. And then? Why do you need my help? He asked in a gentle tone. I asked them if there was someone I could trust and they told me that, well, in the desperation I felt at that moment, I told them that you had been my boyfriend for a while and that your mother could take care of me while my parents were away, the girl confessed with her head down. Izuku was bewildered and amazed, however it was also understandable. If he were in that situation he would undoubtedly have done the same or something similar. I understand that. But, why me? The green-haired boy asked. It's pathetic, but I don't like to socialize and that's why I don't have friends and I talk to you from time to time, so I had no other option, Jiro finished. I don't know if it was a compliment or an insult, Izuku said depressed. Anyway, I think I understand how you feel. Something similar happened to me, if Mom is okay with it. I guess there's no problem with you staying home, Izuku said somewhat embarrassed. It really is very similar. I guess that's how things are, returning to her usual indifferent attitude. Someday I'll pay you back, broccoli, I don't know, maybe I'll help you with a girl you like or something like that, the purple-haired girl finished. You really don't know how to be thankful, he whispered to himself. By the way, Jiro said. Where are we going? He asked since they had been walking for a while. To Kachan's house. The blonde one from the explosions, he clarified before the doubtful face of the girl next to him. We don't even have a class president, so that's what occurred to me. Upon arriving at the explosive blonde's house, which was not far from our protagonist's house, his mother greeted them. "Oh, it's you, Izuku," said Mitsuki, Katsuki's mother. "It's been a while since I saw you. What brings you here?" she asked with a smile. It was clear that she was the opposite of her son. Hey Mitsuki-san, is Kachan home?" he asked with a smile. "Of course, I'll talk to him right away," Mitsuki said before entering her house and yelling at her son to come down from his room, to which the blonde had no other choice. "Deku, what do you want in my house and who the hell is she?" the blonde asked, angry as always. Hi, Kachan, well, a little problem came up and... Could you lend me your notebook to save me from making my mother angry?" he asked somewhat nervously. As a child, Katsuki would occasionally go to Izuku's house and knew that an angry Inko emanated an evil aura around him while maintaining her tender smile. He knew it could end badly, so after Izuku begged him for several minutes, Katsuki reluctantly lent his notebook to the green-haired boy and closed the door to his home. Izuku and Jiro returned to the Midoriya house to resume their conversation about Jiro's matter. Izuku promised her that he would do his best to help her, although the girl did not even thank him. "We're back," Izuku said, entering his house followed by Jiro. "So, I'm Midoriya Izuku, a pleasure," the freckled boy introduced himself surprisingly calmly. "So you're my daughter's boyfriend," said Kyoka's father, as he approached the green-haired boy. "Yes, nice to meet you." Izuku's attitude was not the same as usual, he looked very confident. "This is Mika Jiro," my mom pointing at her. "And that grumpy guy is Jiro, my dad," the violet-haired girl finished. Jiro's father just clicked his tongue and sat down on the sofa to let Kyoka start the conversation. "Izuku, I'm sorry to come suddenly, but there's something I want to talk to you and your mother about," she said calmly. "The thing is that my parents here present have the opportunity to go on a tour as a duet and they want me to go with them. However, I don't feel ready to do it and I wanted to have their support in terms of lodging and care for a while," the girl finished formally. I see," he said in a low voice and then kneeled before his mother and bowed. "Mom, Jiro-san told me about her dream of being a heroine and the path to becoming one has just begun. As her boyfriend, I would feel bad for her if there were no longer possibilities to follow her dream. I want to know your honest opinion on this, please." Izuku finished still with his head down. Izuku's mother was shocked by her son's act and words. Mika and Kyotoku had a guilty face. They did not know about their daughter's feelings. Kyoko was surprised by the green-haired boy's incredible performance. While she sighed. "I suppose if her parents are okay with it, it would be a pleasure to take care of her while they're gone. After all, you understand better than anyone what she's going through," Inko said, motioning for Izuku to get up and sit next to her. "If it's okay with you, it would be a pleasure, and I'll make sure to keep some distance between them as well as not make them sleep in the same room." Jiro's parents looked at each other. They felt bad for trying to take away the dream of their only and precious daughter. After a few seconds without saying anything, they both bowed to Inko. "Please take care of our daughter," both parents said in unison. After a few hours of talking and planning to move Jiro's things to the Midoriya house, and details about Jiro so as not to make Inko's task difficult, the family of three left Izuku's house while Jiro said goodbye to Izuku in a formal manner. The next day in the morning, Izuku had just gotten his things ready to go to the academy when there was a knock on his door. Inko was the one who opened it and saw Kyoka in her school uniform. "Good morning, Midoriya-san, I came to go with Izuku to the academy," said the violet-haired girl with a sweet smile. After just a while Izuku came out. He tried to make normal conversation to kill the time on the way to the academy, but instead of a conversation he received a somewhat depressing answer for him. "Listen carefully, Broccoli, the performance will only be when your mother or my parents are around, so don't get attached to that and don't talk to me even at the academy, understood?" the girl finished. Without waiting for Izuku's response, she quickened her pace so as not to reach the green-haired boy. From now on Izuku's life would take an unexpected turn. Now a girl he barely knows will live under the same roof as him, and when the situation warrants it she will also be his girlfriend. This was a new stage in Izuku's adolescence. Izuku was on his way to the academy. Jiro had gone ahead so that he wouldn't be seen with the green-haired boy. Izuku was arriving at the entrance of UA when he noticed that dozens of reporters were interviewing the students. Among them they approached him to interview him. "Hey kid, how does it feel to have All Might giving you lessons?" they asked Izuku. Well, Izuku was too nervous to think about that. I suppose he tries hard, although I think there are other professionals like teachers who deserve an interview." Erased head, for example. Izuku finished with an excited face. "What is All Might like as a teacher?" they asked a certain brunette with big cheeks. He said, grabbing his chin. "He has a lot of muscles," he said. imitating the hero's characteristic pose. What do you think of Professor All Might? They asked the guy with glasses and blue hair, better known as Ida. I think it makes me realize that we're in a prestigious, top-level institution, Ida began. To be honest, I think the best way to learn how to be an elite hero is by learning directly from one. The explanation of the boy with glasses bored the reporters so much that they decided to go interview other people who were passing by. After several students were interviewed and after a shine as a response from one of them, they wanted to interview the teachers who supervised the entrance of the students, including Aizawa. Can you tell us a few words about what All Might is like as a teacher? Hey, you're really messy, said a reporter to the disheveled hero. No was erased H's dry response before entering the academy and turning his back on the reporters. All Might teaching here is causing a lot of commotion. I'm very excited, said a boy with pale skin and light blue hair, with one hand covering his face. Classroom. I got the reports from yesterday's training. The black-haired man started to speak. Bakugo, you are strong, so stop acting like a child and think about your decisions. Aizawa finished and Katsuki just muttered an I'm sorry. Brat Izuku understood that she was talking about him, so he paid attention to his sensei. You have the ability to make plans, but those plans require a bet. Think of the situation where you don't have to put your teammates at risk to emerge victorious. He finished with a scolding tone. Although his actions had good results, Uraka and Ida could have been hurt in the last attack. Yes, sir, Izuku exclaimed firmly. The others did excellent and learned from the first battle, Aizawa said. Well, now we'll do a surprise activity, the black-haired man finished. Will it be another athletic test? They all thought. Today they will choose the class president, said the board teacher. A normal activity, they all thought. I asked to be the class president, said Kirishima, a boy with red hair who was getting stiff. I'm running, said a certain purple-haired girl. Choose me, said Mina Ashido, a girl with pink hair and skin. The uproar continued as everyone wanted to be president, until a certain blue-haired man, very correct in everything, calmed them down. Silence, he shouted. Being class president is not a game, it is a prestigious position destined for those who can carry out actions for the protection of the group, he began to explain. So I propose to hold a vote to elect the president. What do you think, Professor? Do whatever you want, just make sure you do it before class ends, Aizawa said as he got into a yellow sleeping bag. Several minutes later, so that's how things are, said a newly awakened Aizawa. Izuku Midoriya is the president with 4 votes and Kyokajiru is the vice president with 3 votes, he said while those mentioned were in front of everyone. Who the fuck voted for Deku? I'm going to blow him up, Bakugo shouted. Damn. 0 votes, Ida said in a low voice. If you wanted the position, why didn't you vote for yourself? Momo Yaoyorozu asked. I wanted a fair competition and I lost, Ida said to himself. At the end of the conversations, the 2 class representatives were able to go to their seats. I lost the desire to be a representative, Jiro said in a low voice which was heard by Izuku. I didn't even want to, that's why I voted for you, Izuku said unimportantly. Several minutes had passed and the break had arrived, so the students went to the cafeteria and ordered their lunch with the hero cook hired by UA. Izuku and his 2 friends, Ida and Uraka, sat at the same table and started chatting to pass the time. I don't know who chose me for president, Izuku said to find out if his friends did. Ida-kun and I voted for you. You seem like the best option, Midori-kun said the brunette. Even though they chose me, I don't think I can do a good job as a representative, Izuku excused himself. Don't worry, you'll do well, I trust you, Ida said a little frustrated, but happy for his friend. Ida, I've been wondering for a while, but, do you come from a prestigious family? The green-haired man asked. I wanted to go unnoticed, but being my friends I think there is no problem. In my family there have been heroes for generations. Do you know the hero Ingenium? Ida asked happily. Of course. He has 64 partners in his hero agency in Tokyo, Izuku exclaimed excitedly. He is my brother, and I decided to become a hero to be like my brother, Ida said proudly. Ingenium is to Ida what a raised head is to me, the green-haired man thought. That's why I want to improve and I think I'm not ready to lead other people. After all, you were the one who discovered the true purpose of the entrance exam, Ida finished speaking. Ah, Ida, about the entrance exam. He was interrupted by the beeping of an alarm that said security code level 3. What does security code number 3 mean? Ida asked a boy from another grade who was standing next to him. It means that someone entered the academy. In my 3 years that I have been here it has never happened. It is better that you run, said the senpai to Ida, who listened, and together with his friends they evacuated the cafeteria. Izuku, Ida and Uraka left the cafeteria together, but soon their paths were separated by the dozens of people who crowded the hallways because of the evacuation. Izuku stayed in the center, while Uraka moved forward and Ida was pushed into the glass of the wall, but it wasn't as bad as he thought since he saw what was happening. There Ida could see what was happening outside. They were the professional heroes and masters erased head and present Mike. We already told you that he is not here, go away and do not bother. Aizawa told the reporters to leave the facilities. Hey, they're on private property, they're considered villains, how about we send them flying? The noisy hero proposed. Don't do it, they'll make up a bunch of lies about you, the police will come soon. He stopped his black-haired friend. With Ida. Oh, but it's just the media, Ida said to himself. Hey Ida, she shouted as she approached him. Can you see what's going on? She asked him. It seems that the media managed to enter the academy, Ida said. I see. We have to tell everyone to calm down, think about how to do it, he said to himself. I know, he said, and then separated from Ida. Izuku was looking for one of his classmates whose quirk could get attention and found two. Lightning boy. Hey, the green-haired boy shouted to a blonde boy with an electric quirk. Kaminari, that's my name, the boy said with an annoyed face. Yes, whatever you say, I need your help, he said without waiting for the answer and pulling him to the next destination. Uraka, make me float together with Kanaraki, he said when he was close to the brown-haired girl. It's Kaminari, he refuted him. The brunette girl listened to what her friend told her and made the two boys float. Once near the ceiling, Izuku covered part of his body with his bandages that he usually carries with him and activated his quirk. Looking at the electric blonde activating his quirk, Izuku knew that if he focused his gaze on a point of someone, his quirk would only manifest in that part, so he stared at the blonde's little finger and rays of medium and safe immensity began to come out, alerting all the students who were in the hallways. Once everyone was silent, Izuku threw Kaminari to the ground and proceeded to speak. Hey everyone, raising his voice. The alarm went off because some reporters entered the academy. This is not a villain attack, so stop screaming in panic and behave like the heroes you will become, Izuku said, understanding the situation. All the students who were in the hallways knew the situation and calmed down and evacuated calmly. Izuku was taken down by Uraka, and after the police arrived and took out the reporters, everyone went to their classrooms. Brat, Aizawa said in a strict tone, to which Izuku freaked out as he thought he would scold him. Thank you for what you did during the evacuation, they told me everything, he finished saying, and Izuku felt relieved. I just acted as I thought was necessary, but Ida was the one who told me about the situation, the green-haired man revealed. It was amazing how you used Kaminari as bait to get attention, bro, Kirishima said. Professor, if you agree, I would like the guy with glasses to take my place as vice president, Jiro said, to which Ida got excited. If you're both okay with that, I guess there's no problem, he said, bored. It seems you feel empathy, haha, Izuku laughed. Shut your mouth, broccoli evacuation, he shouted at the green-haired boy, and the class laughed. You really are bad at giving nicknames, you should learn from Kachan, she said with a smile. Shut your mouth, Deku, his blonde friend yelled at him. Continuing with the class, today we will have a special rescue training and another teacher will be with us. This time you can choose whether to use your suit or not, maybe some items of your suits will complicate the activity, explained the teacher as he left the classroom. By the way, the trip will be outside of UA, so we will go by bus. Outside UA. All the boys of Class 1A were waiting for their teacher while talking among themselves. Some of them analyzed what kind of difficulties the items of their suits would give them and removed them for more mobility. Others, to attract attention, wore their suitcases. Izuku only had fingerless gloves, a dark green handkerchief on his mouth, and red hiking boots. Midori-kun, where is your suit? Uraka asked, who had her suit without the helmet. Let's say someone destroyed it, he said discreetly, pointing at his friend Katsuki. I knew I had to wear explosion-proof clothing. The boys continued with their conversations, until the bus arrived and the class vice president, Ida, used a whistle to get everyone's attention. Attention, everyone. I want to see 2 rows of 10 for this trip, stay in line and enter in order, he explained while the others began to board. But the bus doesn't have the shape of a normal one, he said to his friend with glasses, who felt frustrated when he saw it. Listen, the last one to get on sits next to Mineta, the green-haired boy shouted before everyone with an excited attitude ran inside the bus. Ida was the one who had to sit next to Mineta. The bus had 8 seats in the middle facing each other, the rest were normal 2-seater bus seats. Our broccoli sat next to other companions in the middle seats. As expected from the class president. You know how to lead the class, Midoriya, Ida exclaimed to his friend from a few seats ahead. Izuku had a cookie in his mouth. Ah, he exclaimed as he passed it to Kaminari, who was next to him, took a discreet bite and put it away. Yeah, well, I figured it was for the best, the green-haired boy said while laughing nervously and had crumbs around his mouth. Midoriya, Ida shouted before everyone laughed. Izuku-chan, a girl with amphibian similarities, joined the conversation. I was thinking about it. Your quirk is the same as Aizawa-sensei, said Tsuyu Asui. Huh? You really think that? Izuku asked with an excited face. But the sensei doesn't activate the quirks, he deactivates them, they just look alike, the animated redhead refuted. What he says is that it is activated with his eyes, that is, they are the same but they are different, being different makes them the same and being the same makes one different from the other, and if both are the same there are possibilities that they are different. Ooh. I'm already lost, said Kaminari, the electric boy. Sensei, is Midoriya perhaps your disciple who will become you? Asked a pink-haired girl with an outgoing attitude. Erased head turned around at the question. I don't know. Brat, are you exactly like me? He asked in a monotone. Yes. That's exactly what I want to be as cool as you, the green-haired boy finished saying. Is that so? What about you? Aizawa asked in a very serious and cutting tone. Izuku just kept thinking about what his sensei told him, it wasn't bad to become him, right? A few minutes later, the students arrived at their destination, USJ, a natural disaster recreation center where they could practice rescue training. Upon entering, they saw a hero waiting for them. Hey guys, a female voice spoke with a voice distorter. I am, she was interrupted by an excited green-haired boy. Hero 13. The great hero specialized in rescues. I'm a big fan of yours, can I have your autograph? Izuku said, looking for paper to get the hero's signature but couldn't get it. Can you tattoo my back? He asked, lifting his shirt and giving a marker to the hero, who kindly agreed to sign. To my good friend, 13 said while writing on Izuku's back. Izuku Midoriya, he replied excitedly. Izuku Midoriya. You can become a great hero, he said, finishing writing that sentence. Izuku thanked him and all the other students, and even the teacher stared at him with a strange expression. Ida, read my autograph. Are you reading it? I don't know what it says, he said to his friend with glasses. Oh, he put a drawing here, he said, pointing to a spot on his back. Oh wait, it's a mole, he finished saying before the whole class burst out laughing. Well, in this training you will learn to use your quirk to rescue people. As you already know, some quirks can easily kill a person, that is why. She was interrupted by the sound of lights breaking. Everyone was silent. Suddenly a violet portal opened in the distance and people began to come out. There were dozens and even hundreds. What is that? They all thought. Don't move, ordered the sensei in charge. Is it like the entrance exam when it had already started? Kirishima said, getting into a fighting stance. Don't move, he raised his voice. Those are villains, he finished saying. Those are villains? Asked Izuku, who couldn't move from sudden fear. USJ, 11:30 a.m. Those are villains? Izuku wondered fearfully. He knew that at some point he would have to fight villains, however no one expected it to be so soon. In the distance there were dozens of villains, but among them all there were 3 that stood out more than the rest. How strange, according to the information we received, he should be here. I wonder if he will come by killing a few students, said a boy with light blue hair and very pale skin, who covered his face with a hand-shaped item. 13. Protect the students and Kaminari, try to ask for help with your quirk. Brat, help in any way you can, as president, the black-haired boy gave instructions. What? But what are you going to do? The green-haired boy asked with concern. Isn't it obvious? I'll fight, he said, looking back and giving the green-haired man a smile. It was a somewhat sinister smile, but for Izuku it felt safe. Wait. I want to help you, said the green-haired boy, hoping that his sensei would accept. You have 5 seconds to think of a plan, Aizawa said, about to launch himself at the villains. The green-haired boy tried to think, but it was impossible. I know. Jiru, slap me, he said determinedly. Well, was what the girl said before a smack sounded from the green-haired man's face. Izuku quickly reacted and walked over to one of his companions, Todoroki Shoto. I'm sorry about this, he said before grabbing the boy's right hand and pointing it towards where the crowd of villains was. Izuku pointed at the crowd and activated his quirk, staring intently at his 2 colored-haired companion's arm. The green-haired boy's eyes lit up in an emerald flash and a large ice barrier shot out from Todoroki's arm, who was surprised by that. The ice wall was so large that it stopped the villains. Izuku immediately went for another of his classmates, Aoyama, a very eccentric boy. He took Aoyama and pointed his laser at the ice barrier and activated his quirk again, causing Aoyama's laser to begin to break the ice. Izuku began to form a large hole that would act as a door. Once the hole was made, he began to explain. It'll be easier one-on-one, I'm counting on you, Sensei. Before Aizawa nodded and went against the villains, Izuku turned to his bespectacled friend. Ida. You have to get out of here using your quirk and tell UA, he said, shouting and grabbing him by the neck. Midoriya, are you crazy? He asked out loud to his friend who was acting out of the ordinary. But of course I do. Why did you think I'd be sane? He said, pushing Ida. Do your job as vice president and go get help for your class, he said before turning to Yaoyorozu Momo. Yaoyorozu, I need you to create some binoculars, he said before the girl did so without hesitation upon seeing his strange expression. The moment I had the binoculars and Ida left, a purple gas came out of nowhere, and a villain made of the same gas emerged from it. Oh, students, sorry for the intrusion, we have invited ourselves, we are the League of Villains, that purple shadow introduced itself. What a silly name, Izuku thought. Everyone, go to the exit, Izuku ordered. Hero 13 began to do his job. 13 activated his quirk, Black Hole, which disintegrated anything that entered its activation radius. It was very dangerous to use, but if it was against a villain he couldn't contain himself. To 13's bad luck, Kurogiri, as the villain of the portals called himself, opened a portal right in front of 13 and connected it to another one right behind the hero, causing his own quirk to start disintegrating him. When he realized, he quickly deactivated his quirk, but it was too late, he was out of combat. As I thought, the villain said. Being a hero specialized in rescue, you have half the experience of a professional when it comes to combat, he finished with a laugh. 13 Sensei, a girl in a pink suit with an anti-gravity quirk, shouted before launching herself towards the villain. Uraka, Izuku exclaimed as he tied his partner with his bandages and prevented her from going towards the villain. However, although Izuku stopped Uraka, Bakugo and Kirishima launched themselves to attack the villain without thinking twice. The villain in an agile movement dodged the attacks. Wow! That was close, the villain said smugly. Wait. Was that close? The green-haired boy thought. Because of that sudden attack, the villain proceeded with his plan, separating the entire class to different places within the USJ through their portals, or at least he tried, since Izuki quickly ordered the entire class to separate. Only a few were saved from being teleported. Among them was the masterpiece of Izuku's plan. If Ida managed to escape and warn UA, everything would be over. Several students from the class were separated into different areas of the facilities, some in freezing environments, some in burning environments, and a few in wet environments. Among them was Izuku along with Asui and Mineta, his classmates, in a giant pond. Izuku opened his eyes and saw that he was underwater. However, what alarmed the green-haired man was not that, but that a villain with the appearance of a sea creature was attacking where he was. Izuku tried to swim up, but the villain was much faster. It seemed the end for Izuku, when suddenly, a girl with amphibian attributes came to his rescue. It was Tsuyu Asui, who with her very long leg saved Izuku and left him on a boat that was meters away. Followed by that, she climbed along the edge of the boat like an amphibian. Cough cough cough, tea, thank you. Asui-san coughs came out of Izuku as he spat out the water he had swallowed. Tell me, Tsuyu-chan, she said with a tender smile. The same. Do you have any idea what's going on? Her human/amphibian friend asked. I managed to hear a villain talking something about All Might, but they were whispering, so I'm not really sure, the bald-haired man said as he began to stand up and shake his clothes. He lowered his scarf around his neck after squeezing out the water. Taking a breath, we better think about how to get out of here and meet up with the others, Izuku said to the girl in front of him, who nodded. I just hope Ida makes it, she thought with concern. Hey, I'm here too, said a short boy with purple balls in his hair that looked like grapes. Who are you? Izuku asked, tilting his head. I'm Mineta Minoru. You shouted my name before getting on the bus, the dwarf reproached. It doesn't matter, it would be best if they told me more about their quirks. It seems that they chose the places that favored them, otherwise they would have taken Asui-san to a cold or burning place. If we can take advantage of that, we will get out of here unharmed, the green-haired man finished explaining. After a detailed explanation about his quirks and some self-humiliation on Mineta's part, Izuku began to devise a plan to get his friends out. He knew he didn't have to risk one of them in order to get out, which is why his teacher advised him. Suddenly, one of the villains acted. That's enough, brats, die, he said as he activated his quirk and a giant hand made of water appeared. Once you're in the water, it'll be a piece of cake. The villain attacked with that same hand of water. He used it to destroy the ship, managing to split it in two and causing it to start to sink. A giant hand, the freckled man said to himself. Exactly, come, he exclaimed, addressing his companions. In less than a minute, the ship was about to sink completely, so Izuku's plan began. Izuku quickly launched himself towards the villain who made the water hand, grabbed him by the head and arm, activated his quirk and controlled the villain's hand to hit the small river where they were, causing a large hole to begin to form in the center and water to flow around it. Following that, Izuku made a great leap with one hand up. Suyu with her long tongue held Izuku's arm while jumping like that, carrying him. "Now, Mineta," he exclaimed to his companion with grape-like hair. Mineta let out a war cry as he threw his hairballs into the water with both hands, further and further until he reached his limit. The villains were carried by the current to the edge and back to the center when a whirlpool was created there by the force of the water. Mineta's hairballs stuck to everything, so when the villains were dragged to the center by the current, they ended up all stuck together. Izuku and his companions were able to get out of there. Izuku had the idea of going to help his sensei, so they had no choice but to go with him. 10 minutes ago. Erased Head, being the professional he is, went straight to attack the villains to knock them out so they wouldn't attack his students. The villains came in waves of 5 or more, which wasn't a problem for the hero, since his combat style made him strong against teams of enemies, and he erased quirks left and right in the hopes of erasing the villain's quirk that was affecting the security sensors. Erased Head continued to fight relentlessly, taking down dozens of enemies. However, at a certain point when he blinked and his quirk was deactivated for an instant, Shigaraki, who was in command of the attack, used his quirk against him, causing his arm to begin to disintegrate from the elbow. But when he reactivated his quirk it stopped, although his arm was immobilized. Even with that, he continued to fight as well as before. A few minutes later, all the villains in the area had been taken down by a single hero. To his bad luck, in an instant a tall and very robust guy with the appearance of a bird arrived and grabbed him by the arm, breaking it instantly. Aizawa tried to erase his quirk, however, nothing happened and he continued torturing him, breaking his other arm and slamming his head against the concrete. The only thing that could be heard were the screams of agony from the hero and several laughs from Shigaraki. Current time. S-sensei, Izuku whispered with a worried face. Suddenly and without warning, Bakugo arrived, propelling himself with his explosions and rammed into the robust bird, who released Erased Head and hit Katsuki, who was thrown against a concrete wall and was left unconscious. The great specimen called Nomu by Shigaraki was walking macabrely against Izuku and his two companions. Izuku tried to activate the villain's quirk to be able to fight him, but nothing happened. Being about to finish off the students, Erased Head got up and with his bandages holding them with his mouth, he stopped the grotesque villain. "Midoriya, take Bakugo and go to the exit," he shouted to Izuku while struggling with the villain. Izuku listened to what his mentor said and taking Katsuki and carrying him on his back he quickly headed to the exit. However, Izuku saw how his sensei was tortured again, so his head only thought about one thing. "Asui, take Kachan for a moment, I want to take a break," he said, to which the girl listened. Izuku, without thinking twice, ran to where his master was. He quickly swept at the feet of the beast who lost his balance for a second. Izuku tried to get the attention of the great villain, but he just stood still, until Shigaraki said attack him, to which the Nomu followed orders and charged at Izuku, who barely dodged it. "Don't you think for yourself?" the green-haired boy thought before going to wet his bandages a little. Izuku threw a tip of his bandages at the villain, and with a battery he kept for emergencies that he threw and the villain destroyed, he managed to see that he did not react to any stimulus other than Shigaraki's voice. Izuku was careless for a moment and was hit in the arm by the villain, ending up broken. Minutes ago. Ida and his other companions were in a battle against the portal villain. Ida was trying to get out and his companions were trying to prevent the villain from getting close to him. However, with great teamwork it seemed that Ida would succeed. Sero used his Sintas to stop him, Uraka used her quirk to make it difficult for him to move, and the others covered Ida. To everyone's surprise, the villain emerged from it and, being close to Ida, attacked him. Or that would have happened if it weren't for the fact that 13, who was believed to be unconscious, used her quirk to drag the villain into her black hole, but the villain made a portal and disappeared from the combat zone. Ida managed to get out of the USJ and, running with his quirk, went to UA to warn them. Current time. Izuku was on the ground, Aizawa was totally out of combat and there were villains everywhere. It seemed like the end of everything. Until a tall, robust man arrived saying, "Everything is okay. Because I'm here." It was All Might. His face seemed to have changed. He no longer had his characteristic smile, but an angry expression. "You, villain, made the big mistake of messing with my students in a movement imperceptible to everyone." He went for Izuku and Aizawa and took them to a place where they could be safe. The N1 hero charged against the villain, causing a strong current of wind. Dozens of blows attacked the villain, courtesy of All Might. However, he absorbed the force of them, feeling like the blows of a baby. Shigaraki explained the villain's quirk and the hero found a way to hurt him. He grabbed the villain by the back and doing a suplex he left the villain against the ground. To his bad luck, Kurogiri created a portal and All Might was trapped while the portal closed, thus splitting the hero in two.